Okay, guys, so with this segment, I wanted to talk about StarCraft 3, which is something that I've been trying to get the StarCraft community behind to get a StarCraft 3 echoed into existence for a number of reasons. One, to continue the legacy, the lore of StarCraft. Two, to just, continue onwards with more StarCraft. When we look at StarCraft and its history, there's 10 years in between each of the StarCraft titles at this point, and a StarCraft 3 would give us another 10 years of StarCraft. And obviously now, with the recent announcement that Blizzard made about StarCraft 2 esports, that being a 3-year deal with ESL and DreamHack, does that mean that they're essentially saying that StarCraft 3 is not being made at this point? Because the Pylon show, which of course I've talked to a lot of you before about the Pylon show, which is put on by Artosis, who does a really good job. It's everything StarCraft over there. You guys should definitely check out his show. But he spoke on there after the announcement came out about ESL and DreamHack, kind of having the StarCraft 2 Pro circuit for 3 years. He stated that, well, obviously, StarCraft 3 isn't being made at this point. And I just want to respond to that because I actually think that that may very well be a false statement, simply because Blizzard might be handing the reins over because they need more people on deck to make a StarCraft 3. We all know that StarCraft Ghost, a first-person shooter StarCraft game, was canceled a number of years back. And just this last year, there was a untitled StarCraft first-person shooter game that was also canceled, and it was reported by Kotaku. But that being said, guys, this is what I want to say. Obviously, Blizzard cares about StarCraft because they made not one, but 2 first-person shooters. Now, obviously, those were canceled because there was rumor that they wanted more people to work on Overwatch 2. But what I'm saying is that StarCraft is still in the back of Blizzard's mind. It's also probably in the mind of Activision's as well. So here's the thing. I believe that a StarCraft 3 is still very possible. Now, will it happen as soon as what I was hoping? Like, I was thinking maybe it would get announced this year at BlizzCon. Maybe not. Maybe it's something like Blizzard is now, they're kind of, divvying up their people between projects, whether that's Overwatch 2, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, or, whatever project it is, right? But there might be some people that they have working on a StarCraft 3, at least like some initial concepts. Or maybe we are going to get a StarCraft first-person shooter. Look, the way I look at things, when we look at franchises, I look at things in terms of, a lot of people say, well, look, StarCraft can't be a first-person shooter. It can only be a real-time strategy. I say that is false. Like, what needs to happen is in order for some franchises to continue and to stay alive, sometimes you have to go in different directions. So I'll give you an example. When you look at there'll be multiple games that have come out in the past, right? That are, that kind of start as one thing and then they kind of evolve to something else, right? That being like Command and Conquer. If you look at Command and Conquer, this was a game that's a real-time strategy, but they also added a mobile version. Sure, it was also somewhat of a fast-paced real-time strategy mobile game, but it still was on a different, device or a different console. The same can be said for, something like StarCraft. In order to continue building the legacy, the lore of a franchise, sometimes you have to think outside the box. So what I mean is a StarCraft first-person shooter is only going to continue building the fan base of StarCraft. Might be a lot of first-person shooter people coming in, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The real-time strategy genre has never been as big as that of the first-person shooter genre, unless we're talking over 10 years ago when StarCraft 2 first came out. Now, that being said, guys, I think that a StarCraft mobile game, a StarCraft first-person shooter, a StarCraft 3 real-time strategy game would absolutely build upon the legacy and the lore, the story of StarCraft. Because I look at StarCraft like I look at Star Wars or Star Trek or some of these other, sci-fi fantasy games where there's multiple planets, there's multiple worlds that you can visit, and there's so much to learn about the game. And that's why I love StarCraft so much. But I'm okay with there being other ways in which I can connect with the universe, whether that be, just on my mobile phone, or if that means a first person shooter on a console, or if that means another real time strategy as far as like a continuation of StarCraft. And are you really going to end it with StarCraft 2? You're not even going to complete the trilogy? I don't know. That's why I just feel that with the recent announcements, that Blizzard is still working on something. Maybe it's not StarCraft 3, the real-time strategy. Maybe it's something StarCraft related. But something is telling me that a StarCraft 3 very well might be closer than you think. And that being said, Frankie, when you, after, we kind of went over everything that Blizzard had announced, as far as, partnering with ESL, partnering with DreamHack, what are your thoughts on just franchises in general, maybe going away from what the roots of them are? Like, for example, a game in which, say, it's been on PC for all these years, and then all of a sudden they make a sequel and it goes to consoles, or it's a new mobile game, which we saw the backlash from, like Diablo, for example. Everybody wanted to see the next Diablo announced, but they got Diablo Immortal announced, and there was a ton of backlash behind that. My answer to that was, just to give you an example, I made a video about this talking about how I don't think that it was necessarily like a bad thing that they announced Diablo Immortal. It was just the way in which they did it. They didn't announce a new Diablo game that was going to continue the main story. All they announced was Diablo Immortal, a mobile game with no Diablo 4. My thoughts are that those things, though, Diablo Immortal is still going to build upon the legacy of Diablo. Like, it's not going to, why would something like that hurt the franchise? It's just going to add more ways that you can connect with the franchise. It's just the way that they announced it. But what are your thoughts on this? Like, do you like games that kind of expand into multiple areas? I mean, even talking about Call of Duty, it expanded into, mobile devices, and you can play on your mobile phone now. What are your thoughts on that? Do you kind of like some games doing that, or would you like to see more franchises expand upon what they're kind of working with? Like, if they're only on PC, do you want them to kind of move to consoles and kind of, in a world in which everything is kind of becoming cross-play, or a lot of games are at least? What do you think about that? Do you want to see more games start to kind of start finding new ways in which you can kind of connect with the franchise?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to change things up, to bring things to mobile. Um, I personally love the idea that I can take on my phone and try it. Like, I don't know, like for instance, something like Dauntless. Now it's not out on mobile yet, but like that's a game that's going to be completely cross-play for mobile players, console players, PC players. And I really like that idea that I can get on and do something quick, or if I want to sit down and I'm just not at home, I can do that. And like Diablo, I'm super excited for it, but you're right as far as the way they packaged it. They should have had it this year. They should have announced Diablo 4. This is what's coming, showed the gameplay, and then be like, and also we have this mobile game coming out. And the other thing with the Diablo game is that it's still not out on mobile. So why did you announce it to your hardcore fans who play on PC, so early when it's not even in sight yet for mobile? So they really could have waited, and then there wouldn't have been an uproar. So I think it's just weird there, but I do like the idea of them expanding. And tons of franchise. I mean, look at Halo. Halo is a first-person shooter that made Halo Wars an RTS game, and it's made a couple games. That's awesome. They're actually some of my favorite RTS games. Um, But yeah, I really think StarCraft itself could be a mobile game, and the reason for that is because in the early years of like iPhones and touchscreens and stuff like that, uh, GameLoft made a game called Starfront Collision, which was basically a clone of StarCraft, and it was a real time strategy that you could control your units like like a StarCraft game. It wasn't like soaked down all the way. It was a pretty authentic RTS, and they haven't supported it. It's been dead forever. But I always remember that when I think of StarCraft on mobile, and I think, oh man, they really could make a great game on mobile. And I get that, like, some people want to go with, like you said, Command and Conquer, that bite size experience, which I understand. But at the same time, you know, if you really want to stay true to the franchise, in some ways, there's nothing wrong with making longer matches, or like maybe you just have smaller maps or things like that. But I personally think the Command and Conquer is a little too restricting. I don't mind it, but it's very simple. Like, there's only a couple platforms to move to. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm all for franchises expanding and moving into new things, new platforms, new genres, as long as they do it right. And like I said, I mean, in some cases, make sure you kind of promote it and announce it the right way. You know, no one wants Halo to come out and say, "Yeah, by the way, Halo Infinite is a mobile game."
Oh
But
my God.
on top of if they said, "Here's Halo Infinite, but also we're bringing a Halo mobile game now too," that would be fine. It's just, be smart, especially because people are touchy with mobile, even though, you know, a lot of people play on mobile just because you and me grew up in a more traditional sense on consoles and PCs doesn't mean that all this newer generation, hasn't been doing their phone, and that's just unfortunately how it is. So we kind of gotta they have to find a way to please everyone, but unfortunately, the future is mobile and being able to play in more ways. So
Right. And I agree with that. I mean, the Command and Conquer thing, see, they got it wrong too. Like EA, they announced Command and Conquer Rivals, but didn't announce a true sequel to Command and Conquer. So they made the same mistake that Blizzard did, which, I think that if you do it right, it's gonna just, I mean, people, the hype is gonna be real. And so with Command and Conquer, I actually enjoyed the mobile game for Rivals. I thought it was kind of fun, even though, like, yeah, it's very simple, but it's just, it was kind of fun. I mean, it's not one of those games that you play like a ton, but it's just another way in which you can kind of interact with the Command and Conquer, universe and such. And the same can go with like a StarCraft if they were to do that. If they, of course, Diablo Immortal is going to be that for the Diablo franchise. So yes, absolutely. I think that there's multiple ways that we can, see StarCraft, or really a lot of different franchises, kind of expand upon what they're currently doing to, to give more ways in which we can, as consumers, as fans, to be able to kind of connect with those games even more. But I would love to hear from all of you guys. Do you guys think that a StarCraft 3 is secretly in production right now, and with those recent announcements that happened, or do you think that means that a StarCraft 3 is actually definitely not happening anytime soon? I would love to hear from all of you guys. Let us know in the comment section below.